Thanks for listening to the Underdog podcast presented by the Riley Decker Companies. Please do us a favor and help us change and improve lives by subscribing and giving us a rating on the platform of your choice. Thank you. Well, today we have another special guest in the first guest we've had on twice on the Underdog podcast, Tim Kight. Welcome back to the UDP.
Kyle, I saw on my calendar that I was going to be doing this podcast with you again. I did not know that I am the first repeat. So I love talking with you. I can't wait to get into whatever you want us to talk about today, because it's always great to talk with you.
Yeah, and it's a blessing. Your work has made a big impact on my life. I talk about it often, actually. My ERO bracelet right here. So I know it's been super resourceful, not just in my business, but in my personal life. And I thought today's episode, Tim, and is to really help folks that are going through a big event with a system and a framework that can help them through. We've had a lot of inspirational guests talking about adversity, disabilities, anxiety, all the stuff going on with COVID, anything of that sort, adversity or an event. And I thought today could really be focused on the great work you've done in your life to help others through that. And that a lot of it is the R factor. But before we go, those that don't know Tim, hopefully you listened to the first episode. I know that's not always the case, but his mission here is, it's not about him, or it's not about him and his team. It's about the people and the teams we serve. So really through discipline-driven leadership, culture, and behavior, how do you maximize your life and or performance? So once again, Tim, hopefully that was a good intro for you, but would love to start and enter into the podcast. Really go back the first episode we had together. You gave our audience a big event in your life, and so I thought we'd start off with yourself and the adversity and how you're attacking your personal framework, and then lead into maybe some of the other disciplines throughout how you can help others.
Yeah, I'd love to. And yes, when we first talked, I was right around that time, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, which means it's metastatic, it's not curable, it's potentially controllable a little bit, but it really it's terminal, meaning that they want to control what's called disease progression. And all the therapies, all the things that I do are about slowing it down and trying to prevent it from growing at the pace it wants to. And so that's where we are. That's what we're in. That was the event I was dealt 2 years ago. And, it's ironic that, right when I got the diagnosis is right when all the business shutdowns and COVID really began to kick in a real serious way. And so I was dealing with my own cancer diagnosis, going through chemo, and all the COVID stuff was happening. So that would qualify as adversity. I think that's right up there with challenges in life. And so yeah, I've been navigating that for 2 years, and got scans about a month ago that showed 3 new tumors have shown up, and then they're going to start me on a new drug protocol coming up next week. Actually, I've done immunotherapy, I've done chemo, I've done hormone therapy, I've done surgery. And just a bunch of things they're going to do to fight this thing. And it's a never ending. It will be a lifelong battle for me. And I hope when I say lifelong, I hope that's, 10 years. The diagnosis is generally 3 to 5 years, or prognosis, I should say. And that was what they told me. I very seriously plan on it being a lot longer than that. And just, I do a battle every day. And I got to tell you, Kyle, that I actually just got off the phone with Lincoln Riley. We've been hired by USC football to be the leadership and culture coach for USC football, which I'm excited about, to say the least, and to help Lincoln and his staff bring USC back to national prominence again. They believe deeply in the power of culture and leadership and E+R=O. And we were talking about cancer, and we're talking about my situation, and it's a battle, it's a fight. And I said, I love to compete. And so you ask about framing. I frame my battle with cancer as something I get the privilege to do. I've always believed, and I teach in R Factor, no one is exempt from adversity. I think the first mistake people make when it comes to difficulties, challenges, and adversity is they're thinking and hoping it will never happen. Sometimes we get good stuff. Sometimes you get, a lot of time it's neutral stuff, but at some point, all of us get painful, difficult things.
Right.
It's not a matter of whether or not you're going to have adversity. It's a matter of what's going to happen when, and that's just the reality of it. So I went into this. I'd prepared myself many years ago that adversity was a real possibility for my life. And when it was announced and the tests were done and the doctor came in and said, "Hey, Tim, you got stage 4 cancer. It's metastatic and it's not curable."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Let's go. Let's start the battle." And that's been my mindset. The last 2 years of my life have been fantastic. I tell people all the time, I feel good physically. I feel great spiritually, mentally. And the side effects of the medications I take are very unpleasant. In 2020, I didn't have this hair because of chemo.
Right.
I will have to do chemo again at some point in the future. And, but you know what? I just take it all in stride because that's just the nature of the battle that I'm in. And I recently was telling some folks, E plus R equals O, event, response, outcome. Your R must meet the demands of the outcome that you want and the event that you're experiencing. That your R, if you want a certain outcome, there's a necessary R. If you're dealing with some events and circumstances and situations, there's a necessary R. And that's the task, and that's the mindset that I think we all have to bring to this. And that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm thinking. And so I just focus on working, loving my family, serving my clients, and I don't worry about cancer. I fight it. Zero negativity, Kyle. Zero. No fear, no negativity, no BCD. Just fight the fight, do my job, love my family, serve my clients, and let's go.
Yeah. And Tim, how have you sustained, because even the best of us, right, sustaining that mindset? First time we talked about it, it was a newer prognosis, and you were about to enter into that fight, for your life, and you still are, right? So how have you sustained this operational framework, this mindset? Is it constantly going back to the different disciplines of the R factor? Is it, has there been any points in the road? Because I think, as I mentioned in the last episode, I think you're one of the most mentally, strong folks because you've committed your life's work to this, and you're constantly approaching it in a certain fashion, which I think is envious of, saying, okay, if I was in your situation, I hope I would fight like you, but you are fighting one hell of a fight. But how do you sustain that? How are you sustaining that now? It's been 2 years.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've always taught, and well, back up for a second. My commitment to the tools that we teach, here's my journey, Kyle. I studied these things, and number one, I'm a student of them. R factor, leadership, mindset, culture, mental toughness, emotional management, all the things. I'm a student of it first. I'm a user of it second, and I'm a teacher of it third. My first thought when I read something, when I study something, my first thought is, how can I put that into practice into my life? And then and only then do I think about, how can I put it into something that I can teach to other people? Therefore, over the years, I have built these things into my life. And one of the things that I teach is that when adversity strikes, and you reach deep within yourself, deep within your heart, to find the courage to respond in an above the line, discipline-driven way, what you will find within you is what you have built within you. And if you haven't done the work prior to the adversity, you'll reach within yourself and you won't find very much there. Mm-hmm. I put 5 purposes on my heart a long time ago. I put 4 core values on my heart a long time ago. I put E plus R equals O on my heart a long time ago. I put productive self-talk. I put focus, discipline focus on my heart a long time ago. So that when this hits me, and now I'm in the midst of it, and it can be very intimidating, the kind of cancer that I have, because it's just not going to go away. It's not one of these things where we're looking to cure it. It's not going to happen unless God intervenes, which he can do. And I pray for. I mean, I would love for God to heal me. And if he is so inclined to do so, awesome. But apparently what I've got the rest of my life is a daily battle. I accept that. I don't control it. And I only focus on the controllables. I know those are cliches. People talk about them, but they're not really. I mean, you think about it, it's not. I mean, if I start drifting over to try to control things I don't control, I would not be in a mentally healthy space. So my sustaining of this on a day-to-day basis is number one, I don't worry about the past or the future. What I do is I win the moment. I deeply believe that the only moment I have available to me to love my family, do my job, serve my clients is today. So guess where my focus is? I was talking to my wife about it. I'm driving back from the office. I'm in my condo here. We sold our house, by the way, in Columbus. We're building a home in Bluffton, South Carolina. I retained in a condo here in Columbus, in Powell. So this is my home office.
Nice.
And a friend of ours had texted us, and her husband was in the hospital battling cancer. And we were texting back. My wife was texting back and forth, and he passed away on Saturday, like within a week. And we were talking as I'm driving back. She's down in Bluffton, overseeing the stuff down there. And we were just talking about how precious every single day of our life is. And we were just talking about where she's going to have the experience that she has with this friend of ours, where she texted the friend, "How's your husband doing?" And the friend texted back and said, "He passed away on Saturday." Mm. And my wife is getting emotional on the phone saying, "I'm going to have to do that someday." And I said, "Yes. Yeah, you are." And we talked about it. Therefore, what? Let's not worry about when that day is going to come. Let's enjoy today. Let's embrace the moment. And that's part of how I sustain it. I use the tools. They're not quotes or cliches. They're genuine disciplines. I built a belief system into my life. I've engraved on my heart things that matter. I know my why. And that's a daily battle for me. So a daily discipline for me. And that's what allows me to fight and win this battle. And again, and the other thing is how you frame it. Mm-hmm. Like if I frame having cancer as a woe is me, why would this happen to me? Where is God in the midst of all this? And oh my gosh, all negative. If I framed it like that, I'd feel negative and I would be ineffective. But I don't frame it like that. That's not the way I look at it. I frame it as people get cancer. I'm one of them. It's a privilege. How can I use this disease that I'm fighting in a way that benefits people around me? And how can I use it to do things that enhance and fulfill this mission I'm on? So is that helpful?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think we talk about predictable events, which you've taught us through your framework. And that's one tough, predictable event that one day your wife has to experience what, unfortunately, that the other gal had to herself. With someone that's maybe in a similar situation, which I think a lot of our audience is going through, maybe something of that sort, with there's a predictable event like cancer or something, that could be terminal. Any other recommendations that, like you said, win the day? What's important now? My old coach used to say that at Miami, Coach Hepner. Focus on the moment and just take it truly day by day, segment by segment, and just max out while you have that and have that positive framework. So even when doubt creeps in, you stay above the line, right? You don't drop below and you stay above. I mean, is that, like you said, all you can control in your situation? It sounds like.
In the R Factor training, we have 6 disciplines: press pause, get your mind right, step up, adjust and adapt, make a difference, and build skill. And each one of those disciplines has very specific mechanics that must be mastered and applied in order to live effectively in response to the stuff of life. The second one, get your mind right, is probably the hardest of the 6. It's the most difficult of the 6. And in that one, we teach that the human mind, as it's navigating life, that it does 4 things. When an event hits, number 1, the mind chooses what to focus on. Number 2, the mind self-talks. Number 3, the mind experiences feelings. And number 4, the mind takes action. So focus, self-talk, feeling, action. We call that the mindset cycle. And everybody does that. No one's mind doesn't do those steps. And that's pretty much the order of it too. focus, self-talk, feeling, action. And it happens fast, really fast. And that's why the first thing we teach is press pause, slow down, be intentional about what you're focusing on, how you're talking to yourself in order to produce productive feelings to drive effective action. Because this is the key to the question you're asking, Kyle. And I think this can be revolutionary breakthrough transformation for your listeners. Our feelings don't come exclusively or directly from events that we are experiencing. Our feelings come from how we focus on and talk to ourselves about the events we are experiencing. I thus have a choice. I can let cancer determine how I feel, or I can choose to focus on self-talk that produces positive feelings that drives how I respond to having cancer. And what most people do is they let their brain, their mind operate on default. Something negative happens and their focus is negative, their self-talk is negative, therefore their feelings are negative, which means they don't take effective action, which reinforces a negative cycle.
Yeah.
And that's a doom loop. That is a doom loop.
I got my R Factor book and I'm reading I'm telling you, this stuff works because you're going through press, pause, get your mind right. Step
turn to
up.
chapter 2. Turn to chapter 2. There's a diagram of the cycle. And so what I do and what I teach and what I practice is I choose what I focus on. I choose what I give my attention to. And I don't focus on negative things. Now, if something negative happens, I frame it in a way of, okay, that negative thing is happening. What can I do, productive and positive, in response to that negative thing? And that's my self-talk. I don't tell myself negative stories. I don't tell myself something. I don't self-talk in a cynical, negative fashion. And I'm constantly feeding my emotions, my feelings, productive focus and self-talk. I constantly feed myself the right stuff. Because here's why. Emotions respond to visual and verbal input.
For sure.
Emotions respond to visual and verbal input. What you pay attention to and what you say to yourself feeds how you feel. What you focus on, you feed. And it's interesting, again, in this context, I'm constantly at the James. I'm tested all the time, labs and scans, and if you didn't have a disciplined mind and you're constantly in there and your numbers fluctuate, and every time you go in, there's a new tumor that shows up, or there's something in your blood that and if you didn't have a disciplined mind, your focus would move over to the negative, and your self-talk would be negative, and you're going to feed a negative emotional state. And that just makes things worse. So I choose what I focus on.
I
choose. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry to interject. I'm sitting there thinking, does someone that has your diagnosis, do they have someone like a Focus 3 or a Tim Kight that helps people that are in the same, situation you are? Do they have like support like that? I was just curious, thinking through that and how you're addressing, like you said, I can only imagine the doctor coming in, telling another tumor showed up or your lab results are this. Do hospitals or health systems give a framework like this?
They do. I don't know what frameworks they use. I don't know if it's frameworks like this or not. I do know this. If you need a counselor to help you navigate through the trauma and the pain and the difficulty, emotional, of having cancer, they're absolutely going to refer one to you. There's support groups you can participate in, which they make known right away when you walk in. So yes, they do. They provide that, and that's cool. So what's happened for me is when I first went in, someone said, "Hey, aren't you that guy that did mental training for Ohio State football?" And I said, "Yes." And all of a sudden, word went around that the E plus R equals O guy was in the house getting chemo and stuff. And I ended up myself having the opportunity to encourage and coach and teach and share these things with nurses and doctors. And I learned something, and that is that oncology clinicians have a very tough job because they oversee the process of people dying. I mean, the vast majority of people that go to the James for cancer treatment, they die. I'm going to. I mean, it's going to get me. but hopefully it's a long time from now, but it will. And so they have this challenging job where they've learned if they get too close to a patient, it's heartbreaking when a patient dies. But if they're not close enough to a patient, they come across as cold and indifferent. And they've got to play this mental game as clinicians where they have to have just enough compassion and friendship and conversation with you to have the visit be positive and a good patient experience, but not get so close that their heart gets attached to these particular patients and their hearts get broken when the patients pass away. I was able to intuit that pretty early on in the process. And so when I go into the James, I always pray and ask myself, who can I encourage today?
I love that.
How can I make a positive difference to these clinicians today? From the phlebotomists that take my blood to the technicians that do the scans to the physician's assistants and nurses' assistants who are in and out of my exam room, taking this, that, and the other thing, to Dr. Monk, who is my oncologist, to Dr. Sabsig, who is my surgeon. And that's kind of how I think about it. And I do really believe, Kyle, that one of the most mentally healthy things you can do when you're in the midst of adversity is find someone to go serve. Go find someone who has a need that you can meet and go focus on that and go do something to serve somebody else. One of the worst things you can do, the psychologists call it ruminating. When you ruminate on your problem, when you ruminate on whatever you're going through, that's just that's negative focus, negative self-talk. That's going to feed, again, if you focus on it, you feed it.
Yeah.
And so I've just found going into the James, the clinic, and serving them, encouraging them, smiling, telling jokes, telling stories, pictures of my grandkids, latest fish I've caught. That's what I do when I go in.
Yeah. Now, I guess this is kind of a selfish question, but someone that's listening, I'm in my mid-30s, have 3 kids under the age of 6. What recommendations with the lens, and maybe your lens hasn't changed, but maybe it has since all this new event the last 2 years has taken place. What is your recommendation for someone like myself? I guess it's, like I said, selfish question here, Tim. What is your recommendation on how to address the different, buckets of our life? And you said this is, which I appreciate, the ERO and the discipline has helped my personal life. But how would you say time management, right? Talk to someone trying to grow a business, or you're just an employee, you're working, you got work, you got kids, faith, all in between. There's a lot of buckets and not a lot of time, right? How would you prioritize or give, I guess, recommendations now at this stage of your life to someone like myself?
Start every day with Bible study and prayer would be number one. That happens to be my faith tradition. I believe in Jesus and I believe in Scripture. I understand not everyone does, obviously. And if you're not a person of faith, if you're not, explore it. and you may find more truth in there than you realize was there. If you don't, start with Bible and prayer. Start with a quiet time of some kind where you are able to get quiet, get alone, meditate, think, do some kind of inspirational reading early in the morning. Number 2, physically train, work out. If you don't make the morning workout, make sure you have one in the afternoon or the evening, but make sure you physically train. That's something else that's been interesting for me, because all the medications that I take these hormones things, and I'm always tired physically. And there's all kinds of these negative side effects that I just never feel like training. I do it anyway. And last night, I was out while the games were on last night, I'm a bachelor again when I'm up here. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm doing my Sunday thing, the linens, the clothes, and all kind of stuff. And I was dressed all warm, and I was out in my garage with my arms and legs day. And I'm out in the garage with the hat on, and it's 25 degrees, and shut the door, and I'm doing curls and military presses and lateral raises and French curls and squats, goblet squats. And I didn't feel like doing any of it. And I just kept saying, self-talk, do the work, fight the fight, fight the battle. And I know that physical training helps my endorphins and helps my metabolism, but that's just for anybody. I turn 69 tomorrow, by the way, is my birthday. And boy, if you're listening to this and you're 35 or 40 or 45 and you're not training, get with it.
Yeah.
Get with it. Come on, do the training. Don't neglect. And then business and family, you have to have boundaries. And this is one of the things that's been most challenging about COVID, where people work from home,
Right.
where they're no longer in an office, and the boundaries were, like when I'm in the apartment down in Bluffton that we're renting until we build a house, or I'm visiting BK and Brittany with the 2 grandkids in Charlotte, or I'm visiting Carrie and Andrea with their daughter, our grandchild there. And my grandkids will come in the room, grandpa, and I'll be on a Zoom call with a client or a podcast or something. And because the grandkids, they know no boundaries, right? But then their parents come and grab them, and I'm able to finish the Zoom or whatever. But you do have to establish boundaries. And if we're working from home, then make sure you got alignment with your spouse about what those boundaries are, because you need to set aside, obviously, time. You got to build a business. You got to do your job. You got to fulfill your 20 square feet of the company or the business where you work. But you've got a family life, and you got 20 square feet of your family life. And by the way, 20 square feet is our metaphor for your sphere of ownership, that you control the inside your 20 square feet, and outside you have impact, inside you've got control. So when I use that, that's a metaphor. So boundaries are absolutely essential today, Kyle, and you got to have them. And it's tricky with COVID, but you got to have them, and sit down with your spouse and kids and honor the boundaries.
No, I appreciate it. Last time you challenged if I was using the framework in my personal life, and I, was self-aware, I think, and said, no, I'm not. And now I think the one thing from today, at least amongst many different things, is spending that deep thought time, either praying or, able to have some quiet time with, and no excuses, no exceptions. Like you said, you got to get it done. I've lost some weight, which is good. I went through a weight loss challenge, lost 40 pounds. So I was excited about that.
I was going to say, look awesome, my friend.
Yeah. I let myself go for a little bit. And I think that was part of it. So I got to stay on that. But I think there's always a reason why not. And I think what I'm hearing also today is you have every reason to not get up and work out, to not go out and even spend time with someone like me or a client, because like you said, time, you don't have potentially a ton of it, or you have a predictable event potentially coming your way. So that's just really, really great amongst many different things of how to max out each day. Because quite honestly, once again, now I'm going to go home and I got to get better at quiet. I got to start my day off in a better way. So
one of the things that we all have to understand is that in order to make good decisions in life, you need good information, and sometimes your emotions give you bad information.
Yeah.
I mean, good decisions are driven by, again, good info, but sometimes how you feel isn't good info. I made a decision many years ago to untether my emotional state, my energy level, to circumstances and situations. It is the ability to be positive in response to negative is a superpower. And it's a superpower available to everyone. And I'll challenge your listeners. What is your current capability to bring a positive mindset to negative situations? And if that's not a current capability you have, start building it today. Start the journey. And don't allow how you feel be the determinant of what you do and don't do. You just can't live like that. That is a recipe for mediocrity or disaster. So develop the capacity to bring a positive mindset to negative situations. It will change your life.
Yeah, we talk often about BCD and energy around here. The word energy is, being positive. I mean, it's amazing to go below the line how quickly, and I'll admit it myself. And quite frankly, the reason why I'm making an excuse, or I'm making defensive or complaining that I have a 6-month-old daughter, God bless her, a gift, but I also not getting a lot of sleep. So I'm complaining, and I'm also defending my case to say, hey, I can't get up and do quiet time because of X. So, once again, no excuses, no exceptions. And it gives me an ability, like you said, you're giving me an awareness ability to see that and miss that. Cause I do think, someone coming from your lens, it's so important because oftentimes people always say, if you're on your deathbed, what do you regret? Right. Or what are the things that you would change in your life? Right. That's oftentimes asked, I think, to a lot of different folks that are, having that event in their life. And I always find it curious to read on those that are there, or someone that's coming to the end of their potential life, getting older in life, and getting that input from them. So thank you for sharing.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Of course, I'm in the grandparent stage. So for me, when my children tell me that their little ones are doing this or doing that, or doing this or doing that, and it's somewhat disruptive, or they don't sleep, or they, pooped in their pants or threw up in the bed or whatever, I'm going, yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Well, while you're in Columbus, if you
been
want
there and done that with you guys,
if you want to come to Cincinnati, you're more than welcome. If you get a little bored in that condo up in Powell, shoot on down to Cincinnati. We'll bring you to the Decker household and keep you busy.
The grandparenting is that's the awesome thing, of course, and everyone knows the story, is that grandparents get to be with them for short periods of time, but it's not a daily responsibility for us, and so for us as grandparents, everything the kids did was cute, everything, but I don't deal with it every single day. I just deal with it those times when I'm with them. So it's fun.
Well, it's exciting to hear common thread. Mike Bone was a guest on the Underdog podcast when he was here in Cincinnati. So the USC athletic director. So
yes,
small world there. And I know, done some, connecting with Luke Fickle, like I said, a lot of great coaches and leaders in the sports space you've worked with, and obviously importantly, a lot of businesses like ourselves. And this was not here to promote Focus 3. It's just more gratitude and thankful for the work, because it's made such an impact, truthfully, on our organizations. Like I said, we really, majority of our, it's not mandated, but you'll see when you go to our centers, we've got 24 across the country. We needed a leadership language, and you were there for us, and your work has really helped us go through, especially this COVID. We rolled it out about 2 years ago after the podcast, really studied the work and said, hey, this is something that can help us in life. And that's what people love too. It's not, Kyle, this is not just helping me at your company. It's helping me at home. And that's what you told me. I said, that's funny, because that's what Tim told me. And it did help me. My marriage has gotten better. My relationships with my kids have gotten better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have more purpose and attention to things that, and a lot of times it's what you do. And sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but it's just, you simplified it for me, because it seems overwhelming when you look at life in different lenses. And especially, you can, like I said, 3 kids, work, this, and that, all the different pressures of a circumstance. But, you really were able to break it down to me and say, hey, this is just break each event down, and each event has a response that leads to a different response. And you really want to have better outcomes, Kyle, and you'll enjoy your life, and it'll be more, you'll have more purpose, and you'll drive forward, and you'll affect and change other lives. And anyway, I appreciate you.
Let's make sure though that anyone listening to this podcast that may not have heard before and may not know precisely what we're talking about, you're referencing E plus R equals O, which stands for event plus response equals outcome. And the message in that framework is that you do not control events. You do not directly control outcomes, but you always have control over how you choose to manage the R. And every day you make a decision how to respond to the events that you're experiencing and the outcomes you're pursuing. And the R that you choose determines the O that you get. And if you want a better O, you have to choose a better R. And there is no situation in life, personal or professional, to which E plus R equals O does not apply. It applies driving your car. It applies traveling through an airport. It applies to young parents. It applies to grandparents. There's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, I thank you again. And that's so you're teaching me another thing. I'm just so normal to the ERO. You think as a person in the podcast, I would be able to lay it out for you, but it's one of those where it's become part of my normal framework where I just think everyone knows it. But
It's like an operating system, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm sitting here on the podcast. I'm thinking, you know what? The one rule is you explain. You don't assume that people know. And I keep assuming talking to you, but it just shows you how much, once again, nothing but gratitude to your work, and the best is ahead, I think, for you, and appreciate your time and effort today and spending with me. It means the world. Anything else, Tim, to wrap it up? Any other knowledge nuggets or any words of advice for our audience?
I think what I'm seeing too, through all the COVID and all this stuff, right, we need leaders to become much better at the disciplines and principles of leadership. And we recently changed the name of our leadership program from Lead Now to Relentless Leadership, and got the trademark for it and all that, because we recognize the need for leaders to just always relentlessly build trust with people and help people go produce results. And that's what leadership's about. It's about engaging with people and helping people execute. And it's a real passion I have for how people are leading today. We need better leaders in politics. We need better leaders in our communities. We need better leaders in our schools. We need better leaders in our companies. We need better leaders in athletic environments. We need better leadership today. It's never been more important than it is today. And I think COVID exposed weak cultures and weak leaders. We started this podcast, you say, Focus 3, what we're all about. We develop leaders, we strengthen cultures, and we equip people to behave with discipline. That's what we do. And that's my passion. And so that's becoming just more and more evident to me, the need for those things. So I just leave on I will leave it on the leadership note. And if someone's listening to this, they happen to be in a leadership position, visit our website and listen, to stuff we do, because we give away a lot of free stuff. I just want you to be better as a leader, all of you listening to this, no matter what domain you may be serving in. And leadership is most important when it's most difficult. And it's challenging now, and we need you. So elevate your leadership.
Yeah. And once again, your work has left a legacy on me. So thank you again. And I highly advise, once again, those that might be struggling, that's listening to this and find it resourceful. And I know I was rattling through a lot of the different work, because it is more natural for me now, because we use it every day. We really do. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it helps. At the end of the day, like you said, Tim's mission it's not about him, or it's not about even his team. It's about people and teams we serve, and really lifting others and making more leaders, as he had just mentioned, in this world. So thanks, Tim. Really appreciate you. And I know you mentioned last time, you're going to make it 20 years. I know, like I said, you threw it out there on the last podcast. So I know, the things, but you're going to live your life, I know, to the fullest, and continue to make impacts on folks like me. So God bless you. Appreciate you.
I appreciate it, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Underdog Podcast. Please subscribe and rate our podcast on the Apple and Google podcast apps. See you next week on the UDP.